For nearly 5 years, America waited in silence. And then, suddenly, Donald Trump was back. Last night, on CBS's 60 Minutes, the former president didn't just give an interview, he declared a comeback. No filters, no scripts, no second takes. Before cameras rolled, the air was thick, not with politics, but anticipation. Would he attack? Would he defend? Or would he finally reveal what he'd been holding in all these years? And then he leaned back, smiled, and said the line that froze the entire studio. The media doesn't want truth. They want control. But this time, I'll give it to them anyway. From that moment, the interview exploded, raw, unpredictable, and defiant. He talked power, war, censorship, and redemption. And whether you love him or hate him, one thing was clear. Donald Trump wasn't giving an interview. He was reclaiming the stage. The question now is, what happens next? After almost half a decade of silence, Donald Trump finally returned to the mainstream media stage in an explosive appearance on CBS's 60 Minutes, and the interview instantly became the center of attention across America. The former president, who had largely relied on his own platforms and rallies to communicate with the public since leaving office, sat down for what was described as an uncut and unfiltered conversation. For millions of viewers watching that night, it wasn't just another political interview. It felt like the comeback of a man who once dominated every headline in the world. The air was thick with tension even before the cameras started rolling. Producers from 60 Minutes reportedly spent weeks negotiating the terms of the discussion, with Trump's team insisting there be no pre-screened questions and no editing that could distort his responses. When the show finally aired, what followed was a raw, unpredictable, and often combative exchange that immediately reignited old debates about power, leadership, and truth in American politics. The host, visibly prepared for confrontation, began by asking Trump why he had avoided long-form media interviews for so many years. Trump leaned back in his chair, smiled slightly, and said in his familiar, confident tone, "Because I didn't trust them. The media doesn't want truth, they want control. But this time, I'll give it to them anyway." That single statement set the tone for the entire conversation, fiery, defensive, and completely unfiltered. Throughout the first part of the interview, Trump touched on almost every major issue that has defined the last few years, from America's foreign relations and the handling of the economy to the question of the 2020 election and his possible return to office. His language was sharp, emotional, and occasionally sarcastic, giving viewers the sense that he was speaking directly to his supporters rather than to the interviewer sitting in front of him. He accused the current administration of weakness on every front, claiming that the country had lost respect on the global stage. He repeated several familiar points about border security, inflation, and foreign policy. But what made this interview different was his renewed energy and the way he framed his grievances. He said, "People are tired. They're tired of being lied to. They're tired of watching their country fall apart." His words resonated with many Americans who still believe his version of events, and even those who disagree found themselves listening closely, waiting for the next unpredictable remark. The interviewer tried to keep him focused on specifics, but Trump's answers often drifted into personal reflections about his presidency and what he called the media war that never ended. "They tried to silence me," he said. "They took me off platforms. They banned me. They lied about me. But I'm still here, and they can't stop that." The studio grew silent after those words, as if everyone understood that this wasn't just about politics, it was about redemption and defiance. As the discussion moved toward foreign affairs, the tension rose even higher. Trump claimed that under his leadership, the world was stable, while under the current administration, it's chaos everywhere. He pointed specifically to conflicts in Eastern Europe, rising tensions in the Pacific, and what he described as a dangerous game with nuclear weapons. His comments about nuclear policy drew immediate attention because of how openly he discussed America's preparedness and strategy. He said, "When I was president, we had strength and everyone knew it. No one wanted to test us. Now they're testing us every single day."
That line quickly spread across social media and news outlets, becoming one of the most quoted moments of the entire interview. Analysts and commentators immediately began dissecting it, some praising it as a reminder of American assertiveness, others calling it reckless and dangerous. But regardless of opinion, the remark showed how Trump still understood the rhythm of attention, how to turn a single phrase into a headline. He seemed aware that every sentence he spoke was being recorded, clipped, and shared in real time. And he thrived in that environment, smiling slightly whenever the interviewer looked startled or uncomfortable. The conversation also took a more personal turn when Trump was asked about the investigations that have surrounded him for years. Instead of avoiding the topic, he leaned forward and said, "It's all politics. Every single thing they've done, every charge, every investigation, it's because they're afraid of me running again." His tone was firm but calm, and he repeated that he had nothing to hide. The interviewer asked him if he would commit to fully cooperating with ongoing legal processes, and Trump responded, "I've always cooperated, I've always been transparent, but there's only so much you can do when the system itself is rigged." He compared his situation to a witch hunt, a phrase he has used many times before, but this time he added something new. The truth always finds a way. You can't bury it forever. His words carried a strange mix of confidence and fatigue, as if he was both fighting back and reflecting on how much the battles had cost him personally. For a moment he paused, took a sip of water, and looked around the studio before saying softly, "You know, they never expected me to win the first time, and they don't want me to win again, but the people do." That line drew applause from a few crew members who were not supposed to react, catching even the interviewer by surprise. The moment was short but powerful, a rare break in the usual stiffness of television interviews. As the first segment of the interview wrapped up, Trump returned to one of his favorite themes, his relationship with the American people. He said, "I never stopped fighting for them. Even when I wasn't in office, I was still working for America, and people know that." He spoke about the state of the economy, the rising cost of living, and what he called a total failure of leadership by the current government. He claimed that if he were in charge, the situation would be completely different, citing his previous record on job creation and international trade deals. But perhaps the most striking part of the entire opening was not the policies he discussed, but the emotion behind his words. He seemed genuinely convinced that history would eventually vindicate him, that all the controversies, scandals, and investigations would fade in comparison to what he considered his accomplishments. They'll remember the results. They'll remember that America was strong. As the camera zoomed out, the interviewer thanked him for his time, but Trump interrupted, saying, "We're not done yet. There's more people need to hear." The producers had to cut to commercial, but it was clear that the conversation had only just begun and that this interview was about to shake the political world once again.
When the program resumed after the short break, the tone in the studio had subtly shifted. The interviewer, now more cautious, tried to bring the conversation back to specific topics, but Trump seemed to have found his rhythm. He leaned in with the confidence of a man who knew that every second on air was his advantage. "People are watching," he said, glancing briefly toward the camera. "They've been waiting 5 years to hear me talk without censorship, and they're finally getting it." The interviewer asked him whether he believed censorship was still a major issue in America. Without hesitation, Trump said, "Absolutely. The media, the big tech companies, they've all worked together to silence voices like mine. Not because I was wrong, but because I was right. They're afraid of what happens when people start thinking for themselves." His words were met with both agreement and disbelief on social media. Within minutes of that segment airing, hashtags like Trump on 60 Minutes and hashtag media silence began trending, showing how, even after years away, his presence still dominated online conversation. Some called it a master class in political communication. Others saw it as manipulation, but no one could deny the effect. The next series of questions turned toward America's economy, and the interviewer asked directly whether Trump blamed the current administration for inflation and the rising cost of living. Trump laughed softly before answering, "Do I blame them? Of course. When I left, America was booming. Jobs were up, energy was independent, and people had confidence. Now look around. Everything's falling apart. Groceries cost double, gas is up, and small businesses are shutting down. This isn't bad luck, this is bad leadership. He spoke in a way that mixed nostalgia with criticism, painting a picture of a country that had lost its momentum since he left office. People forget how strong we were, he continued. When I said America first, I meant it. I didn't bow to anyone. I didn't let foreign nations dictate our policies. I didn't let bureaucrats tell me how to run the country, and that's why they hated me. The interviewer pushed back, suggesting that some economists have blamed Trump's trade policies for the beginning of global instability, but he quickly interrupted. Wrong, he said sharply. My policies created balance. We were respected. People forget that when you're strong, others behave. When you're weak, the world falls apart. His tone was steady, but behind the words there was a visible frustration, not anger directed at the interviewer, but at what he saw as a deliberate rewriting of history. As the interview progressed, Trump began talking about the state of international relations, mentioning countries like China, Russia, and Iran. He claimed that all of them were testing America's patience because they saw an opportunity. They're watching us collapse from within, he said. They see division, weak leadership, and chaos, and they take advantage of it. The interviewer asked him if he still maintained contact with any foreign leaders, to which he responded carefully, let's just say a lot of people still reach out. They want strong leadership back in America because it makes the world safer. When asked about his previous relationship with North Korea's Kim Jong-un, he gave one of the most memorable lines of the night. People laughed when I said we had good talks, but no one was dying back then. No missiles flying, no wars starting. Sometimes peace doesn't come from friendship, it comes from respect. It was one of those moments that reminded viewers why Trump remained such a polarizing figure. Even his critics admitted that he had a knack for reframing complex geopolitical issues in simple, direct terms that resonated with everyday people. The interviewer tried to steer him toward policy specifics, but Trump kept returning to the larger narrative of strength, respect, and national pride. It's not about policy papers, he said. It's about vision. It's about making people believe again. At one point, the interviewer mentioned the criticism that Trump often focuses more on rhetoric than concrete details. He smiled and replied, "You don't build skyscrapers with rhetoric, you build them with results. Look at what I did. The economy, the border, energy independence, rebuilding the military. Those are results, but the media never talks about that because it doesn't fit their story." His response brought applause from the small audience allowed in the studio, breaking the usual seriousness of a 60-minute setting. The interviewer seemed slightly taken aback, but continued to press on controversial issues, especially about the events of January 6th. Trump's face tightened, and for a moment the energy in the room shifted from confident to cautious. "Look," he began, "that day was a tragedy, but people have to understand the context. There were millions of Americans who felt ignored, who believed their voices didn't count. I told them to protest peacefully, and that's what most of them did. But the media only shows what fits their agenda." He paused and looked directly at the interviewer. "If you're going to talk about January 6th, then talk about all the peaceful people who stood outside, not just the ones who caused chaos. Talk about why they were angry. Talk about the system that made them feel powerless." His words hung heavy in the air. The interviewer, clearly uncomfortable, tried to move on, but Trump's gaze didn't waver. It was one of those rare television moments where silence said more than any question could. Later in the conversation, Trump was asked about his plans for the future, specifically whether he intended to run again in 2028 if given the chance. He laughed for a few seconds before replying, "People keep asking me that. Let's just say America isn't done with me yet." The audience reacted with mixed laughter and gasps, and the interviewer quickly followed up. "So that's a yes." Trump smirked. "That's a, you'll find out soon." He went on to talk about the challenges of leadership, saying it's not about wanting power, it's about responsibility. "I didn't need to do this, I was a successful man, but I did it because I love this country, and I'll keep doing it as long as America needs me." His response triggered a new wave of speculation across news networks, with many analysts suggesting
that this was his most direct hint yet at a return to politics. Even before the interview ended, clips of that moment were already being shared by supporters, political commentators, and influencers online. The sense of anticipation grew, not just about what he said, but what he implied. By the time the second hour of the interview began, it was clear that this was more than just a media appearance. It was a carefully staged message to the American public. Trump spoke not like a man defending his past, but like someone preparing to reclaim his future. He attacked what he called the weaponization of justice, claiming that powerful figures in Washington were trying to block him from returning to office. He said, "They know they can't beat me in an election, so they're trying to stop me in court, but the people see through it. You can't fool everyone forever." His defiance brought him back to the theme that defined his campaign years ago, the idea of a rigged system working against ordinary citizens. He said, "This isn't just about me. It's about every American who's been lied to, overtaxed, and ignored." The interviewer asked whether he still believed the last election was unfair. Trump's expression hardened. "I believe the American people didn't get the truth, and I'll leave it at that." The audience could feel the tension in that response, a refusal to back down even after years of criticism. As the cameras kept rolling, something remarkable happened. The conversation turned reflective. The interviewer asked Trump how he personally dealt with years of constant media scrutiny and legal battles. For the first time in the interview, his tone softened. "It's not easy," he admitted. "You lose friends, you lose peace of mind, but you don't stop, because if you stop, they win." He looked down for a moment, then added, "You learn who's real and who's fake. You learn who stands with you when it matters." That vulnerable moment surprised many viewers who were used to seeing Trump's usual bravado. It was brief, but genuine. Then, just as quickly, he shifted back into his familiar confident mode. "But I'm tougher than they think," he said, smiling again. The audience chuckled, and even the interviewer seemed unsure whether to challenge him or let the line stand. The segment ended with the interviewer asking Trump what message he wanted to give to Americans watching at home. He looked directly into the camera and spoke slowly. "Don't lose hope. This country is too great to give up on. The media, the politicians, the so-called experts, they want you to think everything's lost. It's not. We can make it right again. We just need courage." As he finished, the studio fell completely silent. There was something undeniably powerful about that moment. Whether one agreed with him or not, Trump's ability to command a room remained unmatched. The screen faded to black, and the CBS logo appeared, but the impact of those final words lingered long after. Within hours, the interview was being replayed across every platform, dissected on talk shows, and debated by millions online. Supporters called it his redemption arc, while critics said it was dangerous propaganda. But no one could deny that for the first time in years, Donald Trump had completely dominated the national conversation again.